in finance and commerce related community at large. We also have educators, social entrepreneurs, and corporate people.
We are live. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bhaskar. I'm from Free Press Journal, FPJ. We have been having these discussions for the last 5 years. For 4.5 years, we went the normal route of having meetings in halls, in hotels, talking about policy issues. But when the pandemic struck, we went the webinar route. In fact, the webinar route worked very well for us. We become by far the leaders in India among media houses and among educational institutions when it comes to the popularity of our programs. And that's because of our education partners. And this time we have one more partner, which is Invest India, which is a Government of India organization. We have been doing this primarily because we want to tell students and businesses that the world is changing rapidly. The businesses will not be there 6 months later, 1 year later. So please expose yourself to new opportunities, both for jobs and for investment possibilities. And we thought investments would be a great subject to talk about. And that is where we are. But before we begin the discussions, I take immense pleasure in introducing you to Ya'akov Finkelstein, the Consul General of Israel. Ya'akov is not a stranger to India. He spent his childhood here and speaks quite a few Indian languages, very comfortable. And so let me request Ya'akov to give the introductory remarks, and then the panelists will be introduced to you by Dr. Rane. Ya'akov, can I have the pleasure of your words?
Thank you very much, Bhaskar-ji, for the kind words and I would say a little bit exaggerated introduction about me. Shalom, namaste to everybody. We are very happy for this opportunity organized by the Free Press and our dear friend Abhishek Anani and Mr. Bhaskar and our lovely Israeli panelists. I want to tell you very briefly that I think one cannot overestimate the importance that Israel attaches to the relation with India. For us, India is a strategic partner, and it has to be translated also for in business. In the end of the day, it's very nice to have all these nice words about cooperation and partnership and strategic partnership and friendship. And Mr. Modi comes to Israel and is being literally embraced by Israel and by Mr. Netanyahu. And then he comes to India and the same story repeats itself with Mr. Modi going out of the way and out of protocol to receive him. But in the end of the day, if the business is not there, if the cooperation between the people and the companies and the tourism is not there, it's all just, niceties in the air. So it's also important to state that the potential is great because Israel and India are not competing with each other. Rather, we are completing each other. We have technology. You have the upscaling that we are looking for. You have the services. Okay, you have your own strengths that you can share with us and that we need. So there's a lot of cooperation that can go on. The basic friendship between the two people is also another ingredient that we are counting on. It's easier for us to do business with India because we speak English, because we are two warm, open people that like each other. And India is more than just a market. As I said, it's a partner. So that's why we are working together about developing things. The best example is now with the COVID, when we had to choose a place. So we want to go and take samples to test. So we need to collect database, as I said, the scaling, right? For testing new technologies to detect coronavirus. We came to India in a plane full of scientists and technicians from Israel working with their Indian partnership, DRDO and others, to collect the data. I will not elaborate more because time is short. You came here to hear the experts and not me. And I am very happy to see familiar faces like Ms. Anat Bernstein-Reich, who's a dear friend, and know how passionate she is about India and how experienced she is with the relation with India. Our very own Sagi Itcher, the Economic and Trade Attaché in our consulate in Mumbai. Mr. Benny Grossman, I didn't have yet the pleasure of meeting in person, but Benny, I heard you once saying in an interview how you came here for the first time after Yom Kippur and you literally fell in love with India, and that's how your romance with this country started almost 2 decades ago. So I know you're also committed. And you, the audience, I'm saying again to conclude that business, the economy, is an important layer in the relations. It's not, I think, by chance that between the people to people and government to government, we have the business to business and business to people and business to government. The business is the center that connects the people and the governments. And you, the future businessmen in the college and the other already existing businessmen who are listening to us, when you hear this webinar, I want it to be not just a one-time experience. To come, it's nice, some intellectual stimuli. Take 1 minute after it ends, after you click the leave button, and pause and think, okay, what's out there for me? How can I be part of it, of this growing partnership between Israel and India? And I'm sure that most of you can find a way. And you're always welcome to contact Sagi and our consulate and see how you can take this idea or this question or this initiative and turn it into a reality, into a business model, into a plan, into an agreement. So thank you once again for taking your time for the initiative. And I wish us all a very interesting and practical webinar. Thank you.
One more thing, Ya'akov. If you're not busy, please be with us. 30 minutes later, it's quite possible someone would ask you to give
I'm here all the way.
Oh, lovely.
Way, but I think it will be much more interesting for them to refer the question to the esteemed panelists.
Yes, of course. But it's nice to know that you're around. Okay. We now begin the webinar proper. And could I request Dr. Rane to introduce the 3 panelists and invite them one after another to speak. As always, each panelist gets about 10 minutes to speak. And then after that, I engage all of you in a short discussion.
Thank you, Bhaskar sir. Happy autumn afternoon to all the attendees. We welcome on behalf of SIES College of Arts, Science and Commerce, myself, Dr. Vanita, the head of Mass Media Department. I am happy to collaborate with Free Press Journal here and also to welcome all the panelists who are here amongst us. To begin with, our esteemed panelist, Mr. Benjamin Grossman. Grossman sir is a partner at APM Company who manages the firm's Indian practice. Prior to joining the firm, he was also in charge of legal engagements of one of Israel's leading defense companies in India. Sir is quite familiar with Indian laws and regulations as well as of Indian business culture and practices. He's also the chairman of Israel Bar's Israel-India Committee and the chairman of International Relations Committee, Israel-Asia Chamber of Committee and Commerce. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Another panelist. Yeah. Another panelist over here, esteemed panelist once again, Advocate Anat Bernstein-Reich. She's an investment banker and a business development specialist for emerging markets. Ma'am has also done various aspects with respect to commerce and contributed a lot to the commerce community. She's the chairperson, Israel, India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal Chambers of Commerce, Vice President, Israel Asia Chamber of Commerce, Managing Director, Israel and ANG Partners, Chairperson, the Aggregator, the Center for Israel AgTech in India. Our another panelist, Sagi Itcher, Yes, representing the Economic Consulate in Mumbai himself, covering the central and western parts of India. The economic mission is steered by Sir. Talking more about the economic mission is working with Israeli and Indian partners as well. On behalf of SIES and Free Press Journal, I welcome you all once again on this platform. I hope we all are going to have a win-win situation and India and Israel is going to become a big investment destination for all. Sir, we can begin.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
We normally go alphabetically, and there's always a toss-up between Benjamin Grossman and Anat Bernstein-Reich. Do we take Reich or do we take Anat? Okay. She's the only lady among the panelists here, not to discount Dr. Rane. Let's begin with Anat first.
Although Anat is the youngest, she's the most, she's theirs first.
And she's a charming person. I remember when I met her 2 years ago. I've not forgotten that day.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Thank you for arranging this very important webinar. Israel is the place that I was born, but India is definitely home for me. I'm spending the past 22 years flying between Israel and India. And this is the longest that I'm departed from my home. Since March, I haven't been to India. So those webinars give me to be in India virtually. I have the perspective of looking at investing in India for the past 22 years. And when I came to India, I started a telecom company, a cross-world communications that built networks between, at that time it was India and the US. And today when I look at doing business in India, of course it became easier, but still as investors, we face so many challenges. And India is, and that's the mission of Mr. Modi, to bring international investors. But still, it's not simple. It's not simple from the basic reason that there is a business culture mismatch. And although Israelis and Indians become friends very quickly, and we both nations are very warm, and we immediately will have common topics to talk about, the business culture holds a lot of deals from happening because we are very direct and we talk straight to the face, and we don't have, most of the time, we don't have subtext. So when Indians face Israelis, they not necessarily know how to react to the directness of Israelis. And many times this is hindering the continuation of relations which can be great. Presently, the trade between Israel is touching, I would say, the $5 billion bilateral trade. And this is just, I think that the potential is thrice this amount. But somehow we are not able to really fulfill the great potential that we have. We have the technologies, you have the market, you have the manpower, you have the management skill. And it's odd that I'm saying you, because usually I consider India as a we. From my experience, we face a lot of challenges that if we are here to advise policymakers, still protecting intellectual property is definitely an issue for Israeli companies. And I'm just mentioning one case which is pending at the moment. An Israeli company called Sarin is struggling in India to protect its IP, going to courts, going to decision makings, going to government bodies, and no one is able to protect them. They go to courts, and you know the legal system, it takes ages. And this is reflecting to the entire industry. I mean, if one is not successful, he tells about it. And this, the protection of IP is still something that India needs to address more seriously. And there are new laws and the new enforcement, but still a case like Sarin, which is pending, is very saddening to all of us. Another fact that is depriving us from not fulfilling is repatriation of funds, in a sense that India is calling us to invest. And people, when they invest, they want to know that they can repatriate their funds and even get the profit. And from my own experience, we invested in a township in south of India. Okay, and we did everything by the book and everything through banking channels. And still, when the time was right to, and we're happy, of course, that we were met and we could repatriate some funds, it took us over a year with the bureaucracies of the banks and Reserve Bank and all of that. And, when you call someone to invest, he wants to know his exit strategies and how he gets his money back. And this is something that India still needs to address this topic, and not just show us how we bring the money in, but also what to do. We also want to bring the money sometimes out. And this direction is still lacking. When we come to, I think that India made a major change recently with allowing increased holding in defense companies and some other FDI investments. And although now we are in a corona, so not many deals are happening, I'm sure that this new regulation will allow more Israeli companies in the defense space to come to India when they can hold 74%. This is a major thing that India did recently. And I'm sure that in 6 to 8 months, we will see more Israelis coming because they know that they can hold a major stake in an Indian company and play in the big defense market. Another problem that I see is that the legal system, as much as India is trying to improve, still, when you go to court, you don't want to go to court, actually. And many of the Israelis trying to do their legal work in Singapore or Hong Kong or UK, and that's a pity. That's a pity. There is a wonderful system in place, but for a foreign investor, it's very intimidating to reach the legal system. So again, when you call us to do business in India, we need to be also protected. So this is another component that needs some attention. Something simple like online banking. I mean, I'm sorry that I'm complaining, but that's the session about. I mean, proposing what can be better. The online banking has improved dramatically in the past 3 to 4 years, but still, when you go into online banking services, many terms are in Hindi, although they're written in English. They're in Hindi. Yes. And the Israeli investor speaks very good English, but he doesn't speak Hindi. Toda maybe, but not fluent. So the mindset should be that also foreigners are, when they invest, they want access to the bank account. And this is something to be addressed. I'm happy to mention that recently in our chamber, we conducted a course, a Hindi for business people. And we had even Mr. Grossman was participated. And it's very important because when you come to India, we can all speak wonderful English, but we need to speak some Hindi to chat, to understand, to create trust. And but we're not fluent in Hindi. And the banking system should be aware that there are also foreign investors. My time is up, I think, or would you like me to continue?
We'll take up the other things later. in the discussions. Okay. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I would call it brilliant, even though you said it was critical. It's not critical. It's something that needs to be said. And I'm glad you made those points very forcefully, very simply, very effectively. We'll come back to those points later, but could I have the next panelist, and that is Benjamin Grossman.
Can I share a short presentation?
Yes, please. Kaivat, are you there?
I need somebody to allow me to share.
I know. I wish you'd sent the presentation earlier. 1 second. Kaivat, just see whether you can share the screen.
Yes, now I can share the screen. Yes.
Let's try.
I can share. Can you hear?
Oh, yeah.
You see that?
I can't see the screen yet because I think you should be allowed to share the screen. Just check.
Just a
Yeah,
second.
presentation has been enabled. It has been enabled.
It says so. Okay, can you see the presentation? Yes. Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, I can't see the presentation. Oh, yes, it's come.
Okay. So just a second. Let me do it in the right way. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, super. So I'll do it. It's not a presentation, just to put things on the awareness. So in some points I will repeat what Anat says because we are struggling the same challenges from different angles sometimes. So first of all, FDI in India is good. I think that unfortunately our portion in that number of 74 billion is quite small. But yes, as we said, there was some very substantial changes about the FDI restrictions. And I don't not only looking about the defense, I think that e-commerce, something that Israel is very strong in the technology of that, is substantial, and also asset constructions and broadcast and all these things. But still, if I have to consult to my clients, I feel there's some kind of uncertainty, even in the defense. For example, we don't know what is a critical technology or things like that. It takes time until it flows down to the, I said, mid-level decision makers, which is the bureaucracy in India. And I think in that case, I'll do something and let me take one step backwards. When somebody wants to make investment, either in India, whatever, or wherever, it wants certainty and some kind of a peace of mind that he will invest in efforts in the business and not in the bureaucracy.
Yes.
And in that case, we need transparency and things like that. This is something which is still, to some extent, a challenge that we have to look at it ahead. But I believe that, as I said before, as I've been introduced, I'm in India for the last 20 years. So I think that sometime in 2021, the clarity will be there, and all the benefits that were aimed when you take this decision about this FDI release or ease will be materialized. But still, it's not fully affected in the sense of the psychological side of the investor. Now, as I said before, India is doing continuous jumping on the ease of doing business. I think a few years back it was on the 132, now it's 63. We are not far from Israel, and that's, I think, the most effective slogan for you, because the rank of easy doing business is comprised of many parameters, and most of them you did a huge progress. Also about the protection of IP, as I said, I'm there for the last 20 years. You cannot compare today and what happened in the past, in spite of the example of Sarin, but still, if you did something and you have not made the right PR about it, you have managed, you you have not managed to achieve what you want to do, what you want to achieve. So you have to create a perception that India is not the one disk country that was how it was perceived long back. First of all, there's IP which is developed in India itself. So you are aware of the how it's critical to protect IP, and although there's a task force and enforcement, still you have to go ahead with that and create the understanding that this is not the same situation that has been there in the last, let's say, 10 years back. Now I'm going to the main issue is the taxation. There is there's a high level of uncertainty about taxation in India. Many dividends, if I invest in India, I will take my money out, the profits, the classic way, the main way is to take it through dividends. And although dividends in source on tax on dividends in source has been cancelled in 2022 budget, still the tax authorities find some way to still impose those deduction in source. Again, this is creating two damages. It creates uncertainty because if I read the law and then somebody says, okay, this is the law, but it doesn't work like this in India, this is creating bad name, I'd say, to the tax authorities. And secondly, I want to know when I'm investing, I'm doing my Excel sheet. I want to understand how I take the money out in Israel. I'm less concerned about how much taxes will be left in India. What I want to know the net that I'll come to Israel. Here there was a decision, I think 2 weeks back, that enforce the avoidance of deducting in source in the company which distribute the dividend. But again, you have to, first of all, make sure that it's really happening and it's come to the awareness. My experience as a lawyer that the legal and dispute resolution systems in India are effective, fair, and transparent. We have few cases when we represented Israeli companies that have a dispute with Indian companies, and I can tell you that I got my day in court as if I was going to do the same in UK or in Singapore somewhere. We are now preferring to do, for example, arbitration in SIES in Mumbai and not to take it for ICC in London. For many reasons, but I know that we have good staff, honest staff, will get a decent process. So in that sense, I don't think, but again, you still somehow, for some reason, perceived that it's not as clear as Singapore, and I don't think it's as a base. You have to work on this as well to understand that if you do arbitration in India, you should not worry about it. Now there's one pushing a vector, which is the Make in India regime. I will refer to two things, the DPP, which guide the defense procurement, is very precise about this. For example, IDDM category, which is now covering most of the tenders, you have to do between 40 and 60% of the job in India by Indian entities. And if you give some IP to be developed in India, you get some benefits for that. GFR is the guidelines for procurement of all the government. Only recently, I think that was a few months back, that all tenders under 200 crores has to be given to Indian participants only. Actually, the practice of that you have to establish some kind of a presence in India, business presence, by investment, either buying a company or establish your own company. Last one, which is not, I try to be politically correct here, but the geopolitics is going pro-India and not pro some neighbors of India. India took it all the way when she banned on investments for countries with a terrain land border with India, but I think they have not meant Bangladesh or Nepal or Bhutan. I think you meant, and not even Pakistan. So the world is going to this some kind of polarization. And in the polarization, India and Israel are in the same side, and they will be in the same side. For many reasons, this is not the place to elaborate that, but we're going to be in the same line with you. And this also will give preference from our side to invest in India and not to invest in other countries in the regions, which I think that are already overpriced. What's still to be done, and try not to go about what Anat says, but opening first of all, to register the company in India, it's a nightmare. I can register a company in Singapore in 24 hours with the KYC and everything. In India, it's nothing than less 90 days. I have to do, it's the process is you cannot do nothing in parallel. Everything is to do one after the other. I have first of all to start and to obtain a digital signature certificate. This only takes about 2 weeks. It's a huge, long, tedious process. When clients come to me and says, okay, when can I open a full-fledged company up and running in India? Says it takes 3 to 6 months with the bank account and everything. They always, in most cases, coming with a second thought if they want to embark this way. It's not intuitive, and this is something to be improved. As it's possible in Singapore, it has to be possible in India. Maybe you can do some initial stages of a high level of auditing, things like that, but trust your investors. Taking money, and this will go all the way to get obtain all the permits, PAN and bank account and everything. It's a long process. And I just now work with a company who already invested in India, and they have to open bank account in Mumbai, and it took them about 2 weeks of very frustrating days. They were crying every day, why it's like that, why it's like that. I don't think it's necessary. You can find ways to do it. I don't know. You have SBI in Tel Aviv, maybe you have to give them more authority. Also, taking the money out of India, it's something which, as Anat says, can take a year at least. It's, you're looking after your profit, but also about your cash flow. Taxation, I already says, but I want one thing to say. There was a change in the rules in India recently about permanent establishment. If until 2 years back, when I established my Indian entity, that was materializing all my PE in India, everything was done by transfer prices inside and outside. Now, the mother company can be also in parallel to the subsidiary, both can be considered as a PE. And this is creating a huge concern and constraints, because if both can consider as a PE, as a permanent establishment in India, and let me tell you, nobody wants to be, no foreign entity wants to be considered as having a permanent establishment in India. You are very aggressive about this, the outcome of the same. This is creating, you have to count the minutes of your people in and out of India. It's something that somehow has to be avoided. This is not investor friendly, because if I have a company in India, I want to be able to come in and out as much as I want. That's it.
Thank you.
I exhaust my time.
Thank you very much. You'll have to end the session.
Yes. So I stop share by here.
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Benjamin. Can I request Sagi, who's temporarily, permanently established in India?
Thank you very much, Bhaskar. Thank you for having us. Shalom, Namaste Ji to everyone, welcoming all our audience in this great event done by Free Press. As I was mentioned before, Mr. Sagi Itcher, head of the Economic and Trade Council mission to India, Western India, Central India, based in Mumbai. Unlike my two friends and colleagues, Anat and Mr. Grossman, I'm here only for like 3 months now.
If it's Anat, it's Benny.
I'm sorry, it's Benny. Anyway, I'm here for only 3 months. I don't have the 20 years of experience behind me. I'm trying to get there, but in another 20 years from now. The economic mission to India is a part of the Israeli government. Very briefly about us before talking about investing in India, which is the topic of this session. The economic mission is a part of the Israeli government. We're part of the Ministry of Economy and Industry. We're spread all over the globe, 45 different offices, all the way from Sydney in Australia to San Francisco at the west coast of the US, In India, as Mr. Finkelstein just said, Israel has regards India very highly. See India as one of the most prominent partners in this region of the world. Hence, we have three different offices, commercial at the SIES, different economic consuls, one based out of Delhi and another one in Bangalore, and the third one will be me here in Mumbai. Israel see the bilateral trade with India, with Indian companies exporting to the Indian market is very significant. Our bilateral trade is roughly what Anat said, around $4.5 billion, and a very good year it can reach 5. I think doubling it is not even a challenge. It should have been done by now. For unexplained reason, we're not there yet. And I'm guessing this session is trying to solve some of the pains and challenges in order to allow us to get there. As the Economic Council, the Economic Commission, what we're trying to do on a daily basis to increase this bilateral trade is to facilitate everything which is needed from Israeli companies, mainly startups, many innovative companies, but not only, also bigger companies, other companies as well, any kind of Israeli business, Israeli entity that wishes to sell to an Indian importer, distributor, find a local agent, usually just to find the first local partner. We're here for them all the way, assisting them in whatever they can. An outcome of that is that we're looking for Indian partners, Indian companies that are willing to talk to Israeli companies, engage with them, buy from them, explore Israeli opportunities. That's what consumes most of my day and my team members' day. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis, trying to do. Another mission that we're facing these days, growing more and more, especially now at time of COVID, but also actually before that, is trying to attract investments, get investors to look at Israel as a destination. I know this session is all about investing in India, but that's what we do on a daily basis. Just like the Invest in India or the Indian government are looking to attract investing into India, we're doing the same for our country as the Israeli government. So any kind of investment, mainly on startups and high tech, but not only again, that can be done, should be done in Israel. Israel is, as you probably know, a very innovative country, a lot of high potential ROI for most of the investors. And I'm talking about the big ones, Chinese corporates, and Apple is in Israel, and IBM and Intel for many years. Google is in Israel, Facebook is there. I think in India, I can mention Wipro, the only company, like the big company that's doing proper business in Israel, who bought an Israeli company about 2 decades ago. Other than that, the investment, Indian investments into Israel, the flow is minor. I can't even measure it. It's too small. So that's what we try to do in a daily business. That's to do the matchmaking, get the two sides to talk to each other, get to know each other. We don't charge anything for our services. We give 100% free of charge bills. Nothing, we're gonna get any money, no equity, no royalties, no commissions from anybody. We just need some of your time and a smile. As soon as you can give us those two, we're more than happy to facilitate and help you with everything you need, especially at this time when nobody can really fly over and all these virtual and Zoom platforms are, becoming vital for doing business and getting to know each other. If I would like to refer to the topic that we're talking about, then I guess I'll have to relay naturally to what Anat and Benny were mentioning before me. I don't think I'm telling a secret or surprising anyone by saying potential in India is enormous. I mean, last year, 2019, and this is according to the UN report, over 50 billion US dollars FDA, foreign direct investment into India. India has grown significantly in the past decade, okay, over 20% growth in terms of FDI coming into the country, ranked number 12 worldwide in terms of FDI. So potential is there. The market is huge and growing on a daily basis. A lot of highly skilled manpower, an English-speaking country. So everything that's needed to attract the foreign investor is already here. It's just waiting for the money to arrive and to do good things with the money. And then comes everything that was mentioned before. Okay, so I'm an investor. What's going to happen to my investment? What will happen to my money? So together with Ya'akov and Mr. Finkelstein, just today, actually, we helped an Israeli investor in India, which is based out of here for more than 10 years, I don't want to get into the details, but let's put it this way. He suffered not only from a business dispute, but it came almost to the level of physical violence in his facilities here in India. And it got us as a government to intervene and help him gain back what was rightly his. And we're dealing with other stories as we speak. Some of them are even related to local government, some of them even with the federal government. Local and federal governments will offer subsidies and other incentives for foreign investors to come and manufacture in India or just make in India, as we all know, which is a great initiative for the Indian people, the Indian market. But at the same time, as a foreign investor, again, Israeli or non-Israeli, obviously I'm representing Israel here, but if I'm an Israeli investor and I put a lot of money into a manufacturing plant or unit here in India, and I'm expecting my subsidiaries to come in this amount of time, 18 months, 24 months, as promised to me by the local or federal government, and that money is not coming, and I need to call and call again, it's another email, another letter, and nothing is helping. And then we, again, as a government, have to receive this kind of request from Israeli companies to help them as a government to ask for this money. We have one company we're helping today, another story that I talked to one of their guys. I said, Sagi, listen, I'm telling you very honestly, we have more money now. We want to invest it. We want to open up another line of production. I'm not sure where I'm going to do it, if it's going to be in India or not. This government, the local government, I will not mention any names, owes us this amount of money. Federal owes us another amount of money. It's a significant, a lot of money, significant amount of money that we're lacking now due to this, I don't know, delay in subsidiaries payment. We don't know what to do. Happily enough, some of the problem is sorted us, partially by us intervening as a government, but it shouldn't be that way. My dream as economic counsel, to be at the beach all day long. I love the beach, but not the issue. If I'm at the beach, it means the businesses and the B2G and the B2G and B2B is working perfectly fine. So me as a government, I'm not needed. I don't need to help anybody because everything is going so well. I can just relax and sit back in my chair. So this is what we're aiming for. This is what we would like to see happening. I guess India is undergoing various processes, and the Modi government, this one, the former one, are trying to promote different initiatives in order to allow India to become the thriving economy and thriving market that it should be. I guess from the Israeli perspective, if things may be a bit, speeded up a little bit, then for Israeli companies, it will be highly appreciated if we can see this change coming more swiftly. Potential is great. Now we just make this way to the destination more nicely. So when you walk on it, it's all there and ready for you. You don't have to struggle on your way with no obstacle.
Thank you very much, Sagi. All the three panelists have given us a very interesting view from the other side of the hedge. And no matter how much India tries to say, make in India, India's friendly, if the investor does not feel friendly, there's a problem. And this is more painful when you have Israelis, and maybe the audience does not know this, but almost every student in Israel, once he finishes the military training, either goes to Latin America for a holiday or comes to India for a holiday. The two large destinations. So most
that was before COVID.
Beg your pardon?
That was before the COVID.
Oh yes, that was before COVID. But as it stands, almost every Israeli knows India even before he or she gets into business. Now, this is a question for Sagi and for Ya'akov, and possibly the others can also pitch in. Israel is involved in a variety of industries in India, right from agriculture to water management to homeland security. We are not touching defense of India because that's a subject that is not normally discussed. But if you look at the range, it's a very large range. Which business activity is the most prominent, is the most promising for Israel in India?
Who can answer that?
Okay.
In almost every sector that you will touch, potential is huge.
Which is true, yes.
The automotive sector is suffering for the last 18 months now, maybe a bit less than that, but potentially is amazing. 10% of the work force in India is working in the automotive industry. Some of the world's biggest manufacturers are here. Agriculture, 50% of population is still working in agriculture. Huge country, a lot of farming, agriculture, and ag tech is needed. Water, India is suffering from a lot of very, very unique water challenges. Being honest, Bhaskar, I wouldn't know. I guess we have to differentiate, go through all sectors, all main sectors that India needs and Israel can supply. That's in my opinion.
Okay, great.
I would say, you know, in multiple questionnaires, you have an option of all of the above. So this is more, in other words, what Sagi is saying. Water and agriculture are by definition strategic field of cooperation between Israel and India.
And you're very strong in both.
Yes, and you have a priority for that. Again, as I said before, we have to translate. You have to put our money where our mouth is and translate it into, you know, a policy and business. So we have, we call it a full-fledged agricultural expert in Delhi in our embassy, who is responsible to activate 29 and now growing number of centers of excellence for agriculture and to facilitate with agricultural, you know, cooperation. On top of the agro-business that Sagi and his counterparts in Delhi and Bangalore are doing. Water attaché is the next thing to come. We're going to have a special expert on water to come to Delhi next year for the same purpose. And not less important, you know, cybersecurity, fintech, these are the fields of cooperation of the future, and the future, as you know, is already here.
Yes.
And health getting now a huge boost because of the virus, long distance and to the rural area, medical health services, yes, by phone, etc. So all these fields are things that Israel is, I would say, on the rise, and more, and many more.
Okay. Benny, there's a question for you. While I do understand that defense relations between India and Israel are normally not discussed and figures are not mentioned, but the relationship in India between Israel and India, as far as defense ties are concerned, is a very old relationship. But lately, the government of India has allowed foreign defense companies to manufacture in India, and large business groups are setting up companies. Listed groups are setting up companies in India. For example, Adani with Elbit. And the Mahindras have their own ventures. The Tatas have their own ventures. Do you think that this kind of business through listed groups will bring out more defense deals into the open?
Well, yes, but it depends what you're comparing to. I'm not sure that this will generate more business because the business is dictated by the volume that the government needs. I think what it will create, it created the involvement of the Israeli companies will be in the equity level. You gave just the Adani Elbit example. You can also say Rafael and Kalyani, and
yes,
many more will come. This will say that our involvement will come in the level of equity of establishing JVs.
yes.
And I think by then we'll feel a little more comfortable to share more IP to be developed in India, on India
Okay.
than before. But more important, what we see that the government also unlashed business to the MSME sector in the defense.
Okay.
And with many MSME companies, I think, I say SME, I don't think we see micro, but we see small and medium enterprises coming and seeking cooperation with Israeli companies in the defense. What is interesting that in Israel, many of non-defense technology have been evolved from defense technologies.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yes.
that at a certain point of time in the future, we will see this phenomena as well.
Yes.
There was a company that we worked with, was called MediGuide. They actually took some technology of Elbit for helmet positioning systems to cardiovascular operations, and many more, because, you know, Israeli had to invest a lot in the defense
Yes.
technology if we want to survive. And now we can take and create some development of that to the non-defense. So I think that this is an interesting horizons to the future. But I want to add something about this to give another perspective of that. As you know, recently we have signed the Accord of Abraham with UAE, and most probably more will come. I think this is creating a new dimension of the relations.
Yes.
Because in many years, the investment was the obstacle. I mean, Israeli camp says, okay, we bring the technology. Indian camp says, okay, we are bringing the money. Somebody has to come. We are making, so we bring the market, and somebody has to come in to bring the money in order to make it make it happen. I think with our joint friends, which have relations with you for many years, and we have now open relations with them now. I think that they can be the third ingredient that we need to create this triangle of success. That's why I think that these new relations, actually, the relations have been there for many years, but now they are open and public. I think this will boost also the investment in India. Maybe the money will not come from Israel, but the incentive will come from Israel. So I think this can be a game changer if we'll tackle it, if we'll address it right.
Brilliant. Anat, a question for you. You've been involved in a township development project of sorts in India, which gave you a lot of acidity and gave you some money also at the end of the day. But the kind of projects that you took up and which Israel is good at, township planning, civil defense, these are the concepts that we needed for a new India, for an industrialized India. How do you see those projects emerging as you go ahead?
This is, I think it's a tough question, what you're saying. When you talk about civil defense, or as we call it, Homeland Security.
Homeland Security.
Post 2611, there were numerous trials to collaborate in this kind of defense. Very few succeeded. Again, maybe it was too early. I think that the smart cities scheme of India is the right way to approach it. And the smart city is the venue for Homeland Security, for new applications, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm answering another question that you asked, the audience also should be aware about government initiatives for joint collaborations and financing joint collaborations, like the I4F initiative by India and Israel to sponsor joint R&D. And this is very important. In every quarter, there is funding for those kind of collaboration. So both Israelis and Indians should use this opportunity for government funding for working and developing. And the government of Israel, and I'm talking now on behalf of Ya'akov and Sagi, there are funds for opening a marketing office in India for Israelis.
Brilliant.
So, and vice versa. I think that India should, beyond the I4F program, should also look for funding businesses to look at Israel and bring technologies from Israel. And, this is, at the moment, only Israel is giving those funds for marketing. Why not India? So that's another way of working. When you spoke before about agriculture, I do want to mention the agribator that we opened in Noida to allow agriculture from Israel come to India and adapt the Israeli technologies to the Indian fields. It's not enough to bring a technology. You always have to adapt it to the Indian needs, to the Indian farmer, to the Indian psychic, to the Indian even seasons and crops. And this is what we are now doing in the aggregator. We found a need for such a center in addition to the 29 excellence centers that Ya'akov and Sagi have mentioned. So this bridge and platforms that allows Israelis to come to India are very needed, and the adaptation is always also needed because India is not buying in the Israeli prices. And this is something that gradually Israelis understand, and also Indians. I mean, there is an arbitrage of prices,
Yes.
which we are trying to overcome by making things made in India or made to India. And this is something that we are doing in the past 2 years in Noida.
Okay, I don't think I should be asking more questions because there's an audience which is waiting with its questions. Dr. Rane, could I request you to come in and ask the panelists the questions that the audience wants to know? Vanita? There you go.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, first of all. And the direct question is to Advocate Anat ma'am itself. Ma'am, since you just spoke about Make in India and Made to India, so audience want to know, can you elaborate more upon how Israeli technology is being imported? That means how you have exported it to India and how we can see more of the excellence centers in near future and how we can come out of such kind of crisis as well.
I'll give you an example for Made to India.
Yes.
And there is, for example, an Israeli company called Solav, and they are making water heating systems, solar water heating in Israel, in Africa. And when they came to India, they realized that Indians actually take a shower in the morning. Usually in Israel, we take a shower in the evening. So the water are still warm. When it comes to India, you want your water in the morning. So they had to adjust their product to the Indian people. I mean, we will not change the Indian people. It's easier to change the product.
The technology, yes.
Yeah, so for example, they added a quick heater to their system so that when you take a shower in the morning, you'll have hot water. This is one adaptation that Israelis were doing. In the Bridge to Innovation program that we did 2 years back, an initiative of Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Modi, the aim was to adapt 18 Israeli technologies in health, water, and agriculture to the Indian ecosystem. And many of those companies came to India and understood what are the needs of the Indian consumers. And eventually the products are cheaper and better when they are learning what India wants. For example, in our aggregator, we have done a trial now with an Israeli technology that is able to reduce the fertilizer need with an application that is checking on the color of the leaf. In order to do it in India, we went to the farms in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, and we tried it and it worked. But we did adaptation to the Indian wheat, the Indian weather, the Indian sun. And I hope that next season of wheat, we will be able to use this technology. So it doesn't, and our audience today are Indians. So whenever we come to India, the first question that we are being asked is, where does it work in India? Indians don't care that it works in Israel, that it works in the US, that we may be the best and the largest in Israel. Still, Indians want to know that it is applicable in India. And this is very important. So all of our partners, clients need to do a pilot and a POC in India to showcase that the product works in India. So the adaptation is critical no matter who you are and what you do and how much experience you did, you need to show that it is for India.
Brilliant.
Very well said, ma'am. You have raised all the factual points. In fact, it was too grounded. The next question is for Sagi sir here. So since you said that you're quite satisfied and the whole scenario is so sufficing for you, it is a direct and mutual question for both yourself and Grossman sir. In fact, the audience would like to answer Sagi sir's reply to Grossman sir's issues which sir has raised in his PPT with respect to the legal system, the closing of companies, and so how can you contribute more in order to overcome the crisis and issues which sir has pointed out in his PPT?
Not sure I'm understanding the question, if to be honest. The question is, how can I allow the Indian tax authorities solve the issues Mr. Benjamin Grossman was presenting?
Because you said that you are quite happy and you would like to stay back and sit.
What I was trying...
The challenges which sir is facing.
I think the challenges, we spoke upon them. I mean, challenges are, it's one thing, like Mr. Bhaskar said, it's one thing to say, make in India, come and manufacture here, come and provide works for the Indian people. We need it. A lot of working hands, a lot of people just need work, and you know, they have all the qualification, they know good English, provide a work while you're manufacturing. This is one thing. And then if the investor is not feeling good enough to invest his money, then this is where the theory or the government initiative is not meeting the reality. This is what we discussed. What I was saying is that me as a government, part of a government entity, as soon as I don't have to, let's put it this way, when two businesses, or if an Israeli company, a business is working with the local government and everything is working and the flow is great and there's no obstacles, no challenges, no problems on the way, then at the most part, I will raise the phone or send an email every other week or once a month, just to make sure that everything is in line. But other than that, I will not talk to the sides. I will not try to progress things forward. I will not push them to talk to each other or push the deal, because they're already working and things are, you know, in a good phase anyway. When I'm intervening, if I may call it that way, what I'm getting in the middle of things is when something is not working right or it's working very, very slow. We need to push it forward. That's another option. But usually something is stuck in the system. So this is when we come and make it, you know, keep on going. So if I don't need to make anything keep on going, everything is going on its own, that's when I can relax at the beach. That's what I was trying to say earlier. Maybe that point wasn't clear enough.
Okay. Sagi, one question. Sorry, Anita, just one more question in this connection. Your government has been trying to persuade India for the last 2.5, 3 years, to my understanding, about the need to have an FTA, about the need to have a CEPA, something like a CEPA, a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between the both countries. And while both countries have been making nice sounds, how far has that gone?
A very short answer, it hasn't.
Ouch.
Discussions have been going on. We're laughing about it, but it's actually very sad. Discussions have been going on, Mr. Bhaskar, not for 2 or 3 years. Discussions have been going on since 2005. So it's 15 years now since we initiate the talks about an FTA, a free trade agreement between the two countries. Nothing has really progressed. If you ask the Indian side, they tell you, yeah, the Israelis are not doing anything. When you ask my colleagues, they say, no, the Indians are not moving. So I'm guessing the truth is somewhere in the middle, like it usually is. This kind of agreement coming into life, even a very, very lean one, these agreements can be, you know, cover everything, cover investments, cover the customs, duties, tariffs, but it can be very lean. You can do something very small. We just made one not a week ago. We need to reapprove it, but we have something already established with the UAE in terms of investments only. Nothing else is there yet. More things will come. So you can do that as well. You can take one part of this really, really big agreement. It takes time whenever two countries or two trade blocks are talking to each other. So we can start with something lean and then expand it over the years. But this, without a doubt, will allow the two countries and the bilateral trade to grow significantly. if I'm an exporter or importer and I know I get reduced taxes, and the final goal is usually zero taxes for a variety of products and services. If I know I'm getting zero taxes or very, very reduced taxes while importing or exporting to Israel or to India, okay, it's working both ways very equally. I'll prefer to import from India. I prefer to import from Israel purely because I'm saving money. This is something that is made for the industry, for businessmen. At the end of the day, they're looking about the profit, about the ROI, about the revenues. And if we can allow businessmen on both sides to increase revenues, increase profits, we should do it. Sooner the better.
Done. Vanita, back to you.
To add to that, to stress one point, that the lack of a FTA is not something unique to the bilateral relations between Israel and India. It's rather an Indian policy which is very reserved about having FTAs. And as you well know, a couple of years ago, they canceled most, if not all, of the FTAs, and they are now reevaluating the need and the form of these FTAs. So that's why we still don't have an agreement also between Israel and India, but it's so also with India and many other states. I can only say that the negotiation is being going on for a while in a very, amicable and understanding spirit as between two friends. But as Sagi said, we still have a way
to go. Okay, thank you. Vanita, back to you.
I want to refer to that with your
Yes. Go ahead.
I think that in that case, the COVID can give us something good. I think one of the obstacles on the FTA for many years was about expert visas, how you define expert and so on. I think post-COVID, the requirement for experts to come physically to Israel or to the other way will significantly decrease.
Yes.
So I think that some of the obstacles and some of the issues were very critical in 2005, as Ya'akov says. Some of them will come almost irrelevant in 2021. So don't give up. I think that
brilliant.
Maybe something good will come out of this COVID and
brilliant.
Slightly easier. I mean, I hope we'll not need an expert visa for Zoom, but that's.
Vanita? I can't hear you.
Sir, it's in general. Sir, it's in general. Can we identify those stringent measures which will help both the countries to overcome the problems with respect to investment, and how we can develop more of independence?
Anything? Anyone wants to say?
I didn't fully understand the question. What is develop independence?
Yes, ma'am.
No, she's asking a clarification.
Can you repeat the question, Vanita? Can you repeat the question?
Vanita, we can't hear you.
Okay. All right. So what can be those stringent measures?
Your voice
What can be those stringent measures? My voice, sir?
Yes. And now it's clear.
Sir, okay. So what are those stringent measures which both the countries can mutually take up so that our investment decisions can be better and we can gain more of independence?
What are the key measures that both countries should take?
Okay, I think that one measure that both India and Israel tried to do in the past was the financial protocol.
Yes.
That gives, each government gives guarantees, and that could help, I'm looking from the Israeli perspective, get more confidence when they invest in India and they have the backup of their governments. So this is one measure that Israel was wanting to have with India, and to the best of my knowledge, it didn't go through, and because of lack of interest from Indian side. More than that, I think that more joint projects like the I4F, like the Bridge to Innovation programs that we did, where the governments are involved and the governments are putting funding to their declarations that they want to collaborate. They need to put resources into that, will foster more business relations. And maybe a joint funding of a bigger project, not just the R&D or pilots. So both governments talk about collaboration, but I think that when you bring also your pockets along, it helps both the Israelis and the Indians to get persuaded about the relations.
Excellent.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Sir.
I think that there is a very effective entity in India called Invest India,
Yes.
which are part of this. And in many cases, when I approached them, I got some, at least initial direction, what should I do in the future? I think that empowering that entity, which is comprised of brilliant people who came from all over the world to India, and get the understanding for the potential investors from Israel and from other places, that this is a one-stop shop which they can approach and get some directions. I think this will decrease the level of anxiety, I would say. And they're doing a brilliant job.
Excellent. Vanita, we can't take any more questions, but I've got one small question because there are lots of students here. A few years ago, Israel decided that it would open up its education institutions to foreign students also. And I'd like to know how many Indian students have started taking benefit of the incredible education standards that your universities offer, and whether gradually over the period of time, you'd become as affordable as, let's say, the European universities.
I can tell you that I had an Indian intern last year. He came here to our office for the last 6 months.
Okay.
He did a great job. Then the COVID came and, stopped it. Because he had to go back to India. But he came, I think, by January. And he's been with us until July.
Okay.
We learned about the Israeli system. We learned from him about the Indian system. It was great. And we know many students, and I think more postgraduate and PhD are coming on the health system of Israel.
Okay.
I mean, quite frequently I'm visiting with my 3 sons in hospitals because of some injuries. It's a common habit in our family. And I see lots of Indian, young physicians in the emergency room there, in the intensive care. Yes, we see them all around. In Weizmann Institute, if you come in every period of time, you'll see lots of Indian, it's more advanced studies, PhD and maybe postdoctorates, but also I think postgraduates as well. Yes, they are most welcome here.
Okay.
Yes. Are the biggest foreign students group in Israel. About 10%
Brilliant.
of all foreign students in Israel come from India. I don't have the absolute numbers, but they are the biggest group. And I think this is why also, as you heard Benny saying that you see them all around and you're very happy about it. As for the price, I can tell you 2 things. One is the American answer that would say that you give peanuts, you get monkeys.
Yes.
So good things cost money. Unfortunately, good education costs money. That being said, the other answer is that still a 1-year Ivy college in America for the price of 1 school year in America, you can get 4 years of higher education in Israel.
Wonderful.
Institute, which, with all due respect, I don't think is less than those diplomas in America. Technion in Haifa, Tel Aviv University, Jerusalem, Ben-Gurion in various fields, Weizmann Institute. These diplomas are welcomed and respected all over the world. When you come to look for work, it definitely counts.
No, because students would love to hear this more often.
So I
Yes.
I think that in the sciences, and both Grossman and Ya'akov mentioned the Weizmann Institute. If you are a science student, Weizmann is among the 10 leading research institutes in the world, and they are embracing Indian students, and they're looking to have Indian students, and they're welcomed. And so to take a look at this opportunity. And when it is a PhD and postdoc, you're being paid. You don't have to pay. So it's not about the cost. It's about the opportunity. And the level. So take a look at that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I don't think we should ask any more questions because we've already exceeded our time limit. And I don't want Vanitha to scold me afterwards for losing track of time. But thank you very much, all of you. And I'd like Vanitha to give the closing remarks. Thank you again.
Sir, I would like to pass on this to Kavya Pillai, who will give us a formal vote of thanks.
Okay. That's one of our bright students.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Mass Media of SIES College Science West, I, Kavya Pillai, would like to extend my gratitude to the panel of Financing India, Focus Country, Israel, held by the Free Press Journal in collaboration with the Department of Mass Media of SIES College Science West. Today commenced a 7-episode series of a panel discussion come interaction with knowledge and new perspectives. I would like to thank the panel for today and kindly correct me if I'm wrong with the pronunciation. Advocate Anat Bernstein-Reich, Chairperson Israel India Chamber of Commerce, Advocate Benjamin Grossman, Partner and Head of the Indian Legal Practice at APM Co, Mr. Sagi Itcher, the Economic Consul, Israeli Consulate General at Bombay, Mr. Ya'akov Finkelstein, Consul General of Israel in Bombay, and the moderator, who's the consulting editor at the Free Press Journal, and my professor, Bhaskar. I also extend my thanks to the audience that's present here for the constant encouragement and support and the numerous questions in the comment section. The entire backend team that has been working and building the entire session till today, Mr. Abhishek Karnani, who is helping with the entire collaboration. And once again, we are back with another series, which is really warmly welcomed, and thank you for it. I would like to also thank my department for giving me this opportunity. Lastly, to the panel, once again, thank you for empowering the youth that is watching right now with the knowledge to make a bold and a better choice, hopefully wisely with all the information that has been provided. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Kavya. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, all of you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya.
I hope I got the names right. I'm very sorry if I got it wrong.
Got the names perfect.
All well.
Whenever I pronounce an Indian name, I get it wrong. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, Sagi.
This conversation makes me feel even more sad that I cannot be in India. I'm really missing every moment in India.
Come.
In Sagi. You can go down and have the tali there. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was wonderful having you here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.